see, make sure everyone can hear me. Yay! I'm so happy. Oh my gosh, I'm like, can't even tell you how amazing it has been to teach back to back like this. Although it is amazing, like every minute I'm with my grandson and every minute I'm with people who I'm counseling, but Baruch Hashem, just 1 minute. Oh my goodness. First I have to say this. Guard this book with your life. This actually was the first cover of my Tanya book. Whole story of how Balaness helped me find my beloved lost book. I was like, can't believe I never ever like had my eye on it, and somehow Hashem made it happen that this book got lost. But anyway, let me get the other book. 1 second, I'll be right there with you. Yay! So, we are actually going to do chapter 51 today. Wow, another incredible opportunity. Wait, we did 49 and yeah, we're 51. Exactly. Okay, it's right in the right place. Wow. This is an incredible chapter. It also helps me to really appreciate Hanukkah when we light our candles, but also every week when we light our Shabbos candles. Not only our Hanukkah candles, but the information here just helps you really relate to why you are needed down here in the world, why you need the fuel to continue to sustain your soul's nourishment, just like a car continuously needs gasoline, and just like a candle during Hanukkah, the wick needs a constant flow of oil to be able to shine its light. So the question is asked, for us Latshuvas, or for us who, were raised fully from, and, were taught that all these Torah mitzvahs is so very near to you in your mouth and your heart that you may do it. And it's really kind of surprising, because for a lot of people it's not. And the Alter Rebbe addresses that. Moshe Rabbeinu said this, and maybe for him. But in earlier chapters it said that really we have the spark of Moshe Rabbeinu inside of us that gives us the inspiration and the power to be able to do Torah mitzvahs. Because if you notice in the last part of this pasuk, that it says it in a way that's not really grammatically correct. Usually when you say, I have grapes, apples, and bananas, right? So if Hashem is saying that these three things are easy for us, meaning to speak it with our mouth, to be able to feel it in our heart, and to be able to do it, there would really only be a need for one and it would be in the end and not in the middle of the sentence. So the fact that it's written grammatically seemingly incorrect shows us there's a message here. And the message is that we have the power to be able to access the Moshe Rabbeinu in our soul, in essence, to be able to speak and to have a feeling, maybe even an intellectual feeling in our heart. And that alone is enough to be able to give us the power to do the Torah and mitzvahs. That's why these are both together, the first two, and that's why the third one is separated. Now, interesting, when you see the word in your mouth, isn't, a mouth in action? But I was just today, just now, like as I'm saying this, I'm realizing, because yesterday we were learning, we need the power of our mouth to activate when we say the words of tefillah, when we say the words of Torah, to activate this spiritual power that's God, enabling us and to attach to His power, and the flow happens through our mouth. And when we, with our mouth, and when we meditate and we think about it in our heart, that will give us the power to do. Okay, so that's the last chapter that we were learning, and we know that the whole purpose of God creating the world is for us to make a home for Hashem. And now the Alter Rebbe in this chapter is going to explain to us that we need these Torah mitzvahs not only to make a house for Hashem by a mechanism that he explains through a candle. Just like a candle can't shine, it needs the oil. So we want the Shekhinah to rest on our head, because that really makes a dwelling place for Hashem. Hashem will be in our mind. Hashem will be more in our heart. Hashem will be more in this apple that we eat and all the things that we use. We redeem the sparks. We bring godliness to the world when we do chesed and acts of charity. So we see that the divine soul is truly a part of Hashem, and if so, why isn't that why isn't our divine soul enough to allow the Shekhinah to rest on ourselves? Why isn't the soul if it's a part of Hashem, Hashem is here in me? But it'll explain that because the soul, even of a perfect tzaddik that 100% has this rapturous love of Hashem and doing everything so perfectly and with perfection, our soul, even that type of a soul, does not become utterly overwhelmed and nullified by God's presence in the world, so that it cannot be one with Hashem's presence. Let me explain. When a godly soul, like even a tzaddik, loves Hashem, there's a conscious entity called the I that loves Hashem. So it's not 100% pure perfection of nullification. There's still an I, there's still an entity that is connected, separate to Hashem. So if 100% of that entity would be connected to Hashem, then the soul would leave the body. It would just be subsumed. Remember we were learning how angels would get subsumed by God's presence, right? So our godly soul, even that of a tzaddik that's doing everything perfectly, if it gets so subsumed in godliness, it wouldn't be in the body. So we can't use our godly soul to get subsumed. Just like the oil that gets subsumed and is elevated and needs more of that oil, if our godly soul left our body and got elevated and returned to Hashem, as it were, who would be in our body? So Hashem helps us understand that these Torah mitzvahs act like oil, because this oil becomes totally converted into the light, just as fuel converts itself, is consumed, it's burned, and it becomes converted into light. So only good deeds and mitzvahs can serve as fuel for the light of the Shekhinah to rest on our head. Because these mitzvot, these teachings of the Torah, are God's will and His wisdom, which are expressions of His essence and thus utterly united with Him. So we see here, in the union of the soul with Hashem, there's two levels. We could study Torah, and the light of the Shekhinah is revealed within the soul, together with the soul's two inner garments, thoughts and speech, which become absorbed into God's light and united with it in utter oneness. But, and here's the point, for the Shekhinah to rest upon the physical body and upon the animal soul that animates it, mitzvahs must be performed in actual deed on the physical level. And it only can be through the medium of our animal soul with the body. So we see here the need of the Shekhinah to rest on our body to affect our animal soul. And so that our animal soul will be absorbed into God's light. So, because the utter ultimate purpose of the whole creation of the world and all the practical mitzvahs is for us to reveal God's presence in this physical world. Not for us to, leave our body and then be part of God up there. He wants us to stay down here. So we need to draw Him down here with these physical Torah mitzvahs. So of course we want to have intention, and we want to be able to concentrate, and we want to be able to animate everything we do with love and awe of God, as we learned earlier in previous chapters. So this light of the Shekhinah needs oil. And what is oil really? Chokhmah, wisdom. So when we learn Torah and when we have a constant flow of this oil, then that will also motivate us to then do more Torah mitzvahs, which also act like the oil, and which also then continuously, allows the Shekhinah to rest on us. So that's why we have so many mitzvahs throughout the day. And we see here that just like in the Holy of Holies, that Hashem dwells, in the Holy of Holies through the Shekhinah. And it's kind of hard to understand. Wait a minute, don't we know that the whole world is filled with Hashem's glory and no place is devoid of Him? Well, there are certain places that God allows more of a revelation of the Shekhinah than other places. And it's likened to, if you put water in a glass and the glass is red, then, it appears as red. And if it's in a green, it'll appear green. But if you remove the glass, then you'll see that it's white. So Hashem is everywhere, and Hashem's revelation is everywhere. But some places He reveals it even more and then more intensely. Kind of like if you have all these coins and you put, the magicians that hide, the objects in the box, and it's covered. So the coins are all there. But if you take one box out, you'll see that it's there. So all because it's covered doesn't mean it's not there. So all because it's less revealed in other places doesn't mean it's not there. And so this revelation also is more revealed through every mitzvah we do. Now here, there's an understanding, and that brings in the Tanya a pasuk from Eo, and from my flesh I see God. So I remember having like this aha moment and really connecting to how Hashem is really everywhere. And the explanation is like, you know how when you stub your toe and you're feeling the pain? So the brain is so connected to all parts of the body, so no matter where something happens, you feel it in a healthy body. So two, Hashem is like the brain, and all of the world is like his body. So like he feels and knows everything. And so the way I view my body, of how my brain is connected to my whole body, then I connect to Hashem and realize that every part of the world is his body, and every part of the world he knows what's going on, and every part of the world there's a life force that's existing because of his breath and his sustaining the world with his blood force of his energy and light. So just like the human soul pervades all the 248 organs of the body from head to toe, Hashem too pervades all of the world. But just like in the body, my soul's principal abode is in this most revealed form is in my brain. Because from my brain, just like the blood goes all over, from my brain where my soul mainly resides, my soul powers then gets diffused throughout all of my organs. So each organ receives a different form, a different life force, and a different functional power that's appropriate to its organ and its composition and character. So the functional ability of one organ and that of another does not derive from the organ itself, likened to the idea of a water in a colored glass, for example, which takes on the color of its containing vessel. Rather, each organ draws from the soul its ability to see or to hear, and receives it in a way that's applicable to it. Now, the reason why we're studying all this is to really get to know Hashem, and to get to know our neshama, and to get to know how we can more value the Torah mitzvahs that we do, and how it really allows the Shekhinah to come to us in this way, to give us this this extra revelation of our soul, and of course the extra revelation of Hashem. I remember in this chapter it talks about the wise man's eyes is always on his head, because he's constantly like looking above and seeing where the Shekhinah wants to rest. So he's thinking, is this deed I'm about to do going to give me the oil for the Shekhinah to rest or not? Because everyone knows the wise man's eyes are, everyone's eyes are on their head, right? But this is like an action-oriented sentence. His eyes are always on his head, looking, is the Shekhinah capable of resting on me? Because is what I'm doing and what I'm saying and each thing that I'm doing going to give the Shekhinah the oil necessary to latch on like a wick latches onto the fire through the oil? So we see that this life-giving force that giving the power of the body to be alive and drawing its vitality from the soul, we see that there's really no difference between one organ and the next. The head, for example, is no more alive than the foot, just as the foot is no more less alive than the head. The entire body, with all its organs, is equally alive throughout. So in Hasidic terminology, this aspect of the life-giving force is called the light of the soul. For the light shines equally upon everything around the light source, regardless of the quality or nature of the objects receiving this light. Now, there's another aspect of this force, this life force of the soul. And it's the specific functional powers which each organ draws from the soul. So there's two aspects, you see? There's the overall life force to live, and then there's the overall life force from the soul that gives us, each organ of our body, the power to be able to see, like, for example, to hear, or to speak, or to walk. So it's the manner in which each organ receives this life force, the functional power, is happening in these two different ways. So there's the plain and uncompounded life force, and then there's, the type of life force that is enclosed in every organ and giving us this differentiation of the power of each part of our body. So like the water in the glass, even though it's colorless, but it's going into a pink glass, a green glass, and then, it's white or red to the viewer. But here, like into our body, each organ receives the same life force, uncompounded, but it's going to different receptacles, and which, then has its distinct function and life force for it to work. But, which is interesting to note and understand, because the more we understand the power of our body and our soul powers, the more we know and understand the grand, power of Hashem. And we realize that, of course, that, our brain has more of a revelation of our soul than in our toenail, so this helps us understand, the incredible infinite power of our soul, which also then helps us relate to how needed Torah and mitzvahs are to ignite the Shekhinah's power that's yearning and longing to activate and reveal more and more of our soul powers. Just like into, for instance, the 248 and versus the 365 mitzvot, we see that the 365 is greater in number. And I remember the Rebbe Yerushalmi was teaching in the book The Power of Return that seeing that the 365 is greater than the 248 ta'aseh mitzvot, the positive mitzvot, that in essence we see how important it is the types of mitzvahs that we don't do, like, because we're refraining from speaking not positively and speaking lashon hara, God forbid. We're refraining from dressing immodestly. We're refraining from, desecrating the Shabbat. And you would think that doing a positive deed would have such a greater, position in of doing good. So the explanation is that for one, because the not doing something is not bounded by a physical thing you're doing, so that there's infinite and more power of revelation, infinite more space, as it were, because you're not doing something. Because when you're doing something, it's an apple. You elevated eating an apple. You can maybe tell I didn't eat breakfast. Can't wait to elevate that apple. Anyway, but so the not doing a deed is so grand because it's not limited by physical object. It's like if we only knew how much grander it is, that we'd have even more power to restrain. And just like the 365 blood vessels, that you need to restrain the blood not to be too much in your heart, because God forbid too much, or you have to restrain the blood flowing to your hand, otherwise it'll balloon up. Like there's a power to restrain, to make sure enough energy of the blood goes to the right place. So the same thing, when we refrain from these mitzvot, we're refraining, and it's bringing such kedusha that it empowers the whole world. Because there's unlimited revelation of the Shekhinah that's like so healing and so protecting the world. I remember the Rebbe actually said that, when you keep your modesty, when you refrain from dressing in modesty, you actually can save a life in Eretz Yisrael. Because in Derech Misosecha, the Tzemach Tzedek explains this idea that when you cover yourself and keep the modesty, and you refrain from uncovering yourself, you're keeping the kedusha, the holy spiritual power of protecting the world. But when you don't refrain and you expose yourself in ways that are not appropriate, or when you speak not appropriately and immodestly or whatever way, then just like the blood, God forbid if it's indiscriminately dispersed and it's dangerous, so too the kedusha then becomes indiscriminately dispersed, and then the klippas and all the side of unholiness can attach itself and get nurtured from it. In Hebrew it's called yonek. It's like nursing from this, God forbid it's a gory image, but maybe let's take a hose, you know what I mean? And the hose has a hole, and the hole then disperses the water to the other side of the neighbor's garden, and now weeds are growing because no seeds were planting. So the water was dispersed, and now it's like, poisonous ivy or something is growing because there's a hole. So when we don't restrain and we don't stop ourselves from these lo taseh mitzvot and give into it, then our kedusha, which of course then ends up affecting our health, our mental capacity, our everything, our livelihood. It's not like God is punishing us. It's a consequence of a sort. You didn't contain your kedusha, and not only did it affect you, God forbid, but it could affect a soldier and a life in Eretz Yisrael, especially right now with everything that's going on in Israel. My goodness. We have to hear the Rebbe's words. We have to understand the power we have to help the world keep strong and healthy. So, we see that we might not well, what's the big deal? I didn't, but no, it's a huge big deal. And now our brain understands this. We want this flow of God's energy. We want this flow of the Shekhinah resting in the world. We want up in Shemaim the Gvurot to change into Chasadim that then brings about this flow. Meaning that strict judgments and what's negative then has the power to change into Chesed, into blessings, into a good. So, when our Shekhinah is resting on our head, and when our brain is radiant with all this unbelievable godly flow, then it flows throughout our body and it flows throughout the world. And there was a story where this woman, and she was my neighbor in Crown Heights, and she was there where her neighbor had lost her eyesight. And back in those days, they could go to the Rebbe and get a bracha. And the bracha that the Rebbe gave through the mitzvah of having checked her mezuzot. They went and checked the mezuzot, and what was erased? Beinei nechem. She fixed the mezuzah and her eyesight came back. There are so many stories. What? It wasn't her fault that the mezuzah got what? It's not a punishment. In that mezuzah is a life force to protect the whole home. Oh, should I tell my story? Actually, I wrote a whole book about it called Carrying a Tune in Sfas. Oh, I should have said that today too in my class, the earlier class, but I guess I could say it here. And I was very, very sickly and had to rest a lot, couldn't barely manage a lot, and no matter what I was trying to do, physical treatments, this treatments, that treatments, and I kept getting, check your mezuzahs. Check your mezuzahs. So I said, oh, we recently checked them. Okay, I'm going to check, because you're supposed to check it once a year, and we had that year done it. So, okay, I'm going to check the mezuzahs. And in the back of my mind, I believe I remembered that story, so I was very hopeful. So I checked the mezuzahs, paid a lot of money, all a gift to Hashem, still sick, another year. Still, like, every time, like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 times, and every time I got to check the mezuzahs, so I checked the mezuzahs again, nothing. So I thought, okay, I don't know, maybe I should check the building. Go to 640 Eastern Parkway, you can see those mezuzahs. So I changed all the mezuzahs. There were many mezuzahs that were not right, unfortunately, and not in the, and some were in the wrong angle, some were there, somewhere. So again, I paid for it. I announced the building. I just did it without even telling anyone. So, but no, later, then again, still not well, still sick. Again, I called the sofer. I said, because he told me, like, maybe you should put the mezuzahs on the elevator. Whether he said maybe or he did, so then I paid for the mezuzahs in the elevator, which, again, no Yeshua. And it's like, I don't know really remember how much time that he was involved in all this again and again, coming back to my house and checking mezuzahs. It's all like one blurry past memory. Seemed like it was like years, but I know for sure I was years sick and it was not getting better no matter what I did. So finally one day we had a flooding, and again, like, I kept asking, and it was again, check the mezuzah. We had a flooding in our house, and usually I daven upstairs. There's like 6 windows, and it's light, and it's beautiful with all the greenery. And I couldn't stay there to daven that day, so I went upstairs, and then I have a curtain in my room, and so upstairs I I didn't want to be near the fumes and everything, so I moved the curtains, and guess what? Oh my gosh, I do not remember showing this mezuzah because behind the curtain was a glass door. And we did not think to look at the glass door. We just didn't because it was covered by the curtain and it was, wintertime and it wasn't open. I'm like, oh my gosh. Call right away, the same sofa. I think mystery solved, Come, I have a mezuzah we didn't look at. And what was erased when he found it? Uvkumecha. And those years, I was a lot of years in bed. A lot of years with little energy and little strength and a lot of years of struggling. Now, for whatever reason, God caused me not to see it all that time. I kind of know why. Because He wanted me to change the elevator to more mezuzahs, and He wanted me to change all the places that were mistaken, and He wanted me to change, maybe that was one of the reasons. He wanted me to go through a lot of heartache to see that everything that I was trying to do didn't help. Thousands and thousands and thousands of doctors, thousands and thousands healers and practitioners, and even holistic and tinctures and herbs and blah, blah, blah. Because you know me, I'm into health. Maybe that was the reason. Maybe the reason of seeing what happens to you when you're sick, humbling yourself in desperation to then feel the pain of everyone who's suffering. Hashem is His reasons. But we see here in the story the mezuzah and the power of the light of the godly energy of protection, and the flow comes in. I can't even tell you. When this happened, I was inspired to write the story in a children's book. It's called Carrying a Tune in Sfas, and the whole message actually is, this woman is sick, and she was in the hospital, and that the whole story when Yaakov actually was asked to have the sons go into meeting Pharaoh, he said, sing the tunes like while you're going into the land, because the power of our words and the song has a power to kind of soften the situation so that the energy of Kedusha would penetrate the vibes of the country, so that for sure they would be kind and give sustenance to the family who were suffering in famine. And the reason why the word carrying a tune in because it's in English too, it's also interesting. You're carrying it with you, right? You're bringing this song as if you're carrying it along with you wherever you're going. So the idea is that when you're going through life and you're carrying the burden of what you're going through, don't forget to sing through it. And that's what Yaakov was trying to give him a message. Not only to create a beautiful atmosphere of more, willingness for the Pharaoh to help them, but that, you're going to face here a challenge. And, don't forget, while you're carrying your burden, to sing through it. So anyways, whatever we're going through, when we have faith and we have trust and we keep our heart and mind, rapturously beating with every moment of the day, with this courageous heart and this fortified heart, and we don't give in to the anxiety, and we don't give in to the temptations of sadness and worry, then we're really refraining from giving into our heart's desires, that this flow of the Shekhinah can not only rest on us, but really transform whatever we're going through to the positive, through this power of this radiance, through this power that's drawn from each particular mitzvah that we do. So then, back to Tanya, because we're talking about our heart, and we don't want our heart to be clogged with all kinds of negative emotions. But here it says something beautiful, that just like the heart diffuses, after it's gotten what it got from the brain, and it flows, to all the other organs. So we see here that the natural order of the brain is that it naturally dominates the heart, right? Because first, the first station of this godly soul really is in the brain, and then it flows and gives its life force to the heart, just like the brain gives the blood to the heart. So this shows the brain has the power in its natural state to have a dominance over the heart. It has supremacy over the heart. Because even though the heart is, despite its centrality, it must in turn receive its own vital force from the soul through the medium of the brain. So, in a similar manner, figuratively speaking, does Hashem fill all the worlds and animates them, just like the soul pervades the whole body. The Ein Sof permeates the whole body of the world. And just like the soul is found within and suffuses the entire body, in a parallel manner, Hashem fills all of the worlds. And there's so many worlds. Oh my gosh. There's no end. It's just, and there's so many creatures in the world, so many plants, right? There's so many heavenly angels, like we can't even fathom even how much creatures there are in this physical world, how many human beings in even one place called China, billions, and it's like, you go, it's like unbelievable. I mean, from one world to the next world, it'll take you 500 years to, like, if you were to, talk about a spatial distance to get from one place to the next, 500 years in an earlier chapters of Tanya, or, from one bottom of the foot of an angel and the top of an angel, how many, how far and wide, it's just like it would take 500 years, to get to one part of the angel to the end. Or, I mean, I don't know, I think I mentioned this, but since it's hopefully going to be in a book, I remember learning with my grandson recently that 1.2 or 1.3 million sizes of the earth fits into the sun. Like, what? Millions of the size of the earth fits into the sun. And the solar sun is not the biggest. Imagine that. So, but even with all that, okay, as grand as all that, and as vast are the differences between one bodily organ and another bodily organ, our soul essence is in everything. And just like God's soul essence is in everything. Equally in everything within all the worlds. But again, the revelation is up to us. How much we do down here will reveal more of that essence that is not as much revealed through the Torah and mitzvahs and through our deeds that act like the oil, so the Shekhinah can rest on us and to us throughout the world. So even in the hidden worlds which because it's like he's so hidden, like there's a place of such hiddenness that even there's such a concealment. Because really, we down here cannot comprehend Hashem and all the higher beings and all the higher worlds. So now we can appreciate more like our partnership in getting that revelation done and accomplished through every Torah mitzvah. So it's interesting, it notes here that why does Hashem, as taught in Kabbalistic literature, call this energy, this flow, this everything with the term light? Because there's other terms in Kabbalah like Shefa, and the speculative philosophy called Chakira, it's termed this flux, this Shefa of energy. And the reason why Kabbalah chooses the word light to signify this revelation, because of this revelation out of concealment. Because previously this light had been concealed within the luminary, meaning the source of this light. And subsequently, through our Torah mitzvahs, it's drawn forth from its source, and it is then a revealed light. It's revealed as a light in a sense, just like, there's darkness and then you turn on the light. So this revelation out of concealment, is only a minute illumination. So when we're turning on the light is streaming. And now, can you see the light? Are you looking up in your head and saying like, wow, I want the light? Please do, especially you women out there lighting Shabbos candles. And please do remember this during Hanukkah. So, now, the flow that's coming generally, to the world and to the higher worlds, they receive this vitality according to its capacity and nature to be able to receive it. Remember, the angels can't receive it. They don't have Torah mitzvahs. But they do have a certain level of life force that continuously allows them to exist. So this is a very critical point here, that many people are gifted with a lot of this light, a lot of this flow, a lot of this, like whether it's the fire, whether it's the earth, the air, or the water element. They've been gifted, like Yitzchak had a lot of fire and Avram had a lot of chesed. But the person has to be able to know how to create that vessel to contain it, because of this greater flow than the average person. If they're just doing the average type of Torah and mitzvahs, they're not creating a big enough vessel to contain this flow. So Hashem gives each one according to their capacity and nature, but if we're not doing our part to do the Torah mitzvahs according to the gifts of God gave us, then, as Kuntrus Mayan explains, and we may have talked about this in previous chapters, then the paucity of vessel then causes the flow to have no place to reside, that it could shatter the mind and the heart. And that's why the Rebbe Yerushalmi says all mental and emotional disorders comes from an abundance of light. Hashem gifted us with this light. He gave us an abundance, not like the angels, and not like the dog, but not like the dog. And we have to be aware of creating this vessel to contain this flow. And that's why you look up in your head, did I do enough davening today? Did I do enough this today? Because if you're feeling extra anxious, or you're feeling extra depressed, or you're feeling out of whack, and you're all over the place, you're like, like sometimes like, did I drink enough water? Did I eat? Maybe I'm famished. Maybe I'm thirsty. You check. Oh my gosh, I'm really out of funk. Maybe I haven't davened as best as I could, and maybe I forgot to daven, or maybe I didn't learn after davening, as we said the previous classes. Check. This flow is coming. You need to be able to be the perfect, not perfect, but you need to have created that vessel as best you can to contain this godly light and flow. So Hashem basically made this natural flow to come into this world, and through Torah and mitzvahs we illuminate the world, we illuminate our mind, we illuminate our heart. And the lower worlds don't receive this divine life force. In quite the same way, and not as a revealed form as in the higher worlds. But we have Torah and mitzvahs, so we can then contain this flow. So, as we continue here, just like a king that has many garments, the king is still there. So even though this world has a lot of concealment and a lot of garments hiding Hashem in a sense, when you actually hug a king, let's say, even though the garments are kind of concealing the physical body of the king, but the king itself is not his garments in a sense, right? Essence of the king. And it's not even the body you're hugging, because that body is just a representation of the essence of the power of the king's might and his intelligence and his and all his planning and orchestrating the protection of the land. Bringing this flow and constantly allowing the flow of the creation to exist. If for 1 second he didn't continue to create the ability of this flow to enter this. So we see now how important it is to understand our partnership, our co-creator position in allowing this flow to come more into the world through our doing Torah mitzvahs. Now, earlier today, I was teaching a concept that Rabbi Leba Wolf taught me, that like when you wake up in the morning, you really have to see yourself as a co-creator. And he says that, and I actually wrote a children's book called Color My Day the Jewish Way, because I really want these ideas to be passed along to our youth, so they'll be able to wake up this way too. And he says, imagine an artist who's really, let's say, I'm elaborating a little bit, but he's really good at graphics. But he wants to hire you to like color the picture, because he does all the lines. It's a beautiful picture. Oh my gosh. And he hires you because you are such a talent to bring beauty and color, because that's your expertise, you know? So basically, you wake up in the morning and Hashem says, here's your day, you know? This is the outline. It's going to happen this way. And what you have to do, please God, help me and be a co-creator with me, and you color your day with the beautiful emotions of faith and trust, and the beautiful colors of the harmony of your mind and your heart in being able to withstand the test of anxiety. You know, you being able to withstand the judgments of what just happened, and just still proceed forward with a courageous heart, with a giving heart, without the calculations. And in that way, those emotions of handling every beat of every moment of, you know, what's happening, you have the power to really bring the beauty of the creation to its ultimate destination. And knowing this now, knowing that handling a situation a little better, still pursuing to pray to God, even though you might be disappointed, things aren't going your way, to pursue, to learn. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you, I want to do a whole class on this. By miracle, I don't know, it just like, when I took one book out, this fell out. And I just want to like read every word of this. But I'm just going to, because I just read it quickly this morning, but it really is exactly like the message of like really trying to fill our hearts with the power of our mind, overcoming what our heart might be feeling, and like really handling the challenge, because we know by refraining how much we're gaining and how much the world is protected when we really do attain this level of self-mastery in this way, because we understand that this act, this thing that we just said, this emotion, whatever it is like it's acting as fuel for our soul to shine and for Hashem to shine into the world. So there's a, let's see what the time is. 1 second, let's see. Wow. Okay, let's try. There's the teaching that that's, you know, the Ashes Chayil song that we sing, that, you know, for us women, we hear our husbands singing, and that is really so much depth to it. And I've read so many different commentaries, but this was something new and different that the Rebbe actually gave a commentary on, because the Talmud cites the verse Sheker HaChaim. And this sheker narchein, which means the charm and beauty, are deceptive and vain. See? Sheker achein behevel hayofi, right? You know that beautiful prayer that we hear Friday night right before Kiddush. And this actually refers to, when we study Torah, and in a way that actually is considered like a lie and like vanity, and it's shocking to hear that this refers to the Torah study of the generation of Moshe Rabbeinu and of Yehoshua and Chizkiyahu. Whoa! And the difference is, what is the type of Torah that is praised, right? The praised generation that studied Torah, like Rabbi Yehuda, who lived in the time of persecution. What kind of statement is this? How can we possibly assert that the Torah study of those generations was deceptive and in vain? So let's first of all differentiate between charm and beauty. Charm is a natural attraction, while beauty is something a bit more logical. For example, people find themselves living in a hometown, and it's very charming to them. Even the circumstances of this place is not so ideal and not so perfect. They just love it because this is their hometown. It's not logical. So, what is it about the generation of Moshe Rabbeinu that they were attracted to Torah study, like with charm, that actually is kind of, as sheker and vanities? Of course, they saw the benefits of learning Torah and they followed Hashem's word. But you can't really, praise this generation because it was easy for them. They had all the miracles. So it's like, you're used to your own home and you have this charm about your own home, but it's kind of, not the best place to live actually. So there was a charm about the learning Torah because it was the miracles they saw and they were used to the miracles, and of course you're going to learn Torah. So then it says, beauty is when there's some logical explanation to why the thing is good. It can be explained based on objective parameters. So there was a teaching that says in Yericho, and the people of the city said to Elisha, behold, this city is a good place to live in, but the water is bad and the land causes people to die. Right? So how could you say this is a good place if, it doesn't make sense? Because this represents, the charm of a place, that even though bad things are happening, but they saw it as good to be here, even though there was miscarriages and dying. So why did the Jews tell Elisha that this city was a good place to live in when people were dying? When there was a miscarry? Because it was charming to the residents. And but beauty is something else. A person can explain why he's thinking about this benefit of this place and all the good things. It's beautiful as an art in his eyes. Whereas charm is beyond logic. It's just an attraction for whatever reason that cannot be explained. So too with the study of Torah. There's a type of Torah study that's beautiful. Wow, it's you can get it. You can see that you're nourishing yourself. You can see the benefit, but it's still, connected to something that was in the later generation. They weren't really seeing so many miracles, but they experienced the good of it. So, wow, so beautiful. I wanted to cover everything, but I'll have to do this in a more greater detail. But, so, in the Eshes Chayil, it says beauty is in vain. To the beauty and even understanding why this is so good to you. And this was the generation of Yehoshua. Because during Yehoshua, after the people entered the land of Israel, godliness wasn't revealed in the way in the desert. When they ate from the manna and they drank water from the well of Miriam, they had their clothes washed by the clouds of glory. They were protected from all harmful and negative elements. This openly demonstrated how great it is to be connected to Hashem. During the time of Joshua, it couldn't be said to have experienced all this charm. And beyond logic, there no explanation. Because entering the land, the manna ceased, they weren't getting all these miracles. They ate from the grain of the land with their own hard work. But still, in the generation of Joshua, the open relationship although it wasn't as open, and they didn't see so many, miracles, but nevertheless, there was some element of the beauty where logically they understood the connection. They saw clearly when they studied Torah and obeyed Hashem's mitzvahs, the walls of Yericho fell. They saw that, by the results of doing what they did, there was a byproduct, and they could see, like, I did A, and look at, I put a penny in the jackpot, I got $1 million. So they saw, like, what happened when they did put the effort of their Torah mitzvah. So in a way, them following the Torah and studying in that is like, yeah, wouldn't you go put another penny in the thing of $1 million? So wouldn't you do Torah mitzvahs every second you saw the results of bing, 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 the good that comes from such a deed? So, although it wasn't charm, because they didn't witness the miracles, like, in a sense, for free, they did witness the beauty of Judaism, because they got total feedback that because of what they did, God saved them. Because of this, that good came to them. It was like immediate. And so they witnessed God's presence. And they knew if they did God's will, everything would work out. Even if the miracles didn't happen. But they saw the byproducts of when they did successfully learn Torah and be connected to Hashem. So, logically, they said, for sure, this is good. We got to do it. Life will be good if I do Torah and mitzvahs. And that's the right thing. So, these two different levels are still like sheker and like deception. It's not considered, being able to get to that level of serving Hashem. Although, for sure, learning Tanya has helped us be able to really understand more of everything that we're doing. There's something about the simplicity of humbling ourselves by Hashem and like the Save A Neshama. Hashem, we're doing it, whether we understand it or not. And of course, we want to infuse in the deeds that we do with more wisdom, with more knowledge of Hashem, with more, which will lead to more love and fear of God. Of course. But we also want to value the level, which we can value today, because maybe we don't see the byproducts so quickly after what we do for Hashem. And that's why in Parshas Ekev, where the beautiful Rabbi Chaim Miller writes in the Good Chumash of the Rebbe's teaching that in essence, when the Beit HaMikdash was up and we saw miracles, and we were on fire and we were so fully maybe serving Hashem so beautifully, it's okay. You know what? Despite that my heel, like a heel, Ekev, that like a heel, I don't feel it, I don't sense it, it's like I'm doing it like a robot with no feeling, but I'm doing it. And I'm doing it despite my cold-heartedness. I'm doing it despite that I don't fully understand and whatever, and I don't see the results. I'm so committed still. That is so delicious to Hashem. That is so cherished by Hashem. So we can't give up on ourselves. So back to here, it says there's a type of Torah study that's related to the charm and beauty of Judaism and Torah and learning, and but what is cherished? What is what way does praised when a person doesn't have an explanation for really, the benefits that he's gaining from Torah. He doesn't see godliness. He doesn't chas v'chalila. He just does it because even though he doesn't witness God's presence or the miracles, so this is why it says, praised is a woman who has Yirat Shamayim, meaning all the Jewish people and all the inhabitants of the world are likened to, God as a husband, and we the people as his wife. So, and it brings here so many stories that when people were in experiencing the devastation of persecution, we have to read this here. Why are you being led to your death? They answered, because I circumcised my son. Why are you being led to you being burned? Because I read the Torah. Why are you being led to be crucified? Because I ate matzah. Why are you being lashed out 100 times? Because I held the lulav. Why are those sores on your back? Because I was whipped and beaten in the home of my beloved. Because I want to be connected to Hashem. Because I feared no evil. This caused me to become beloved to my Father in heaven. That's why it says being beaten in the home of my beloved. Because I didn't care. I did Torah mitzvahs. I went against the grain. I wasn't shamed. I did what I needed to do. And this makes me beloved in Hashem's eyes. And this Rebbe's talk actually was said during the time when the Russians were allowing the Jews out of captivity in Russia. And many Hasidim from Russia were sitting there while these words were spoken to them. They were with full beards. They were fully observant. And they had just left the country that so oppressed and suppressed them. And they were yet strong in their faith, and they continued to observe Torah even with this iron fist. And so many families were present at this gathering, and the Rebbe spoke about their relentless self-sacrifice, comparing them to the generation of Rabbi Yehuda and the son of Rabbi Eli, when it wasn't during the miracles of the 10 plagues, when it wasn't during Yericho and you got to see ding ding ding, I did Torah and this is the benefit I just get right after. Oh my goodness. So we have to realize that there's going to be vengeful enemies on all levels, on all different things that we have to hold strong on. And we have to know that this helps the Shekhinah rest in the world, even though it's going against the grain, even though it's very difficult to stand up. Even in today in America, 2023, let me tell you, even in the free America, I love America, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying there's a lot of underground things happening around here. Different things that just is, that sometimes, we always have to feel the power of our Neshama, giving us the strength to hold strong in whatever our people are going through, wherever we are. So we see here that that we want to do, whatever we can to get to this level of going beyond the beauty, beyond the charm of Torah, and really reach a level of I fear God. And wow, so many stories here. The Rebbe crying when seeing one of the boys who came from Russia, and they were testing them to see, not to test them, but was asking questions. There was a private audience with 30 boys, and they were asking this and asking that, and all of them were well versed in Shas and all of the Gemara, and they were and he was blown away, and the Rebbe was crying, hearing them under such a circumstance of torture and a risk of life that they in the underground, literally hiding from forces of evil to continue to study Torah. And so, so this boy was kind of like taken aback seeing the Rebbe cry like this. And it says here, the Rebbe turned to us and asked, how did you manage to do it? Like, what gave you the strength? So this boy, Yaakov Nachtik, responded, do we have a choice? Did we have a choice? So in other words, he was saying the message is, it's not a choice. There's no other alternative. What's the other alternative? To bow down to this evil and wicked? This is our inheritance. This is who we are. This is our soul. There's no other choice. Even under such certain unbelievable circumstances. So I just want to conclude here that, wow, like, keep persevering. Even if it's under charm, even if it's under beauty, in a sense, because in this teaching is that the people of Purim, when they did the self-sacrifice and committed to Hashem, it kind of sealed the deal and elevated all those years when Moshe Rabbeinu and his crowd was learning, so seemingly easily because the miracles were right there, and even with Yoshua, when it was a charming situation, and a beautiful situation, that they saw the byproducts of the benefit and the rewards of doing it right, and seeing the ramifications of having done and the right thing and committed to Hashem. That we here, we're in this generation, we're not really seeing so much as the days of yore. We're bringing to a wholesomeness and elevating all the generations. So, we're really needed. Our Torah learning is critical, and definitely in this generation, having seen the powers of what Torah mitzvahs do to our mental health and our overall well-being, and stories of the Rebbe with mezuzahs being checked and people getting their blindness cured, and for me, how many years, I had so many years of how many years, but this one case where, oh my gosh, the mezuzah helped. We have to see Torah mitzvahs both in the beautiful and charming way, and we've been witnessing it more and more in this generation, but we got to go back to that simple, pure state where we just want the Shekhinah to rest and to fulfill the mission of bringing God into the world and to be the superconductor of God's energy and light and blessings in this most spectacular way. That if we really knew, we just wouldn't be able to breathe. We'd be just so overwhelmed by such a shocking truth to the reality. And that's why in the Torah, from beginning to end, it starts with throughout the whole Torah, it's emes. It says here, that in the beginning of the Torah it's Aleph, in the middle of the Torah it's Mem, and then the last letter of the Torah is Taf, and that spells Emes. Because the truth of the Torah is in every aspect of our life and will help us in every angle of our life. So if you want to continue to really just take a moment to think of what you just read here, and to please God, get it ready for a little meditation so that we can really bring to light, get in a comfortable position, and really be mindful, and to really Like breathe in what you just heard, what you just learned. Take a time to focus on this idea of how important Torah mitzvahs are for the whole world's well-being, for your mind, for your body, for your soul. That your soul isn't enough to allow the Shekhinah to rest. Not because it's not enough, but because otherwise, if it was consumed by the fire of the Shekhinah, then you wouldn't be alive. You need your soul down here. So it's not enough. You need Torah and mitzvahs to act like the oil. So if you want, see the Shabbos candles, because that actually we see every week. Whether, you know, if you one day read this book, you'll, please God, you'll see your lovely wife and your children, and please God, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren lighting up with the Shabbos lights. And I want you to see yourself really in front of the beautiful candlesticks. And I want you to start stepping toward that image. This beautiful candlesticks. Oh my gosh, today's candlesticks are gorgeous. But you know that as beautiful as the candlestick is, there's missing the light. The light representing the light of the Shekhinah that wants so desperately to be more in the world. And you get closer to the candle and you realize, as you see the bottle of oil and you start pouring it into that little container, drip by drip, you have the sensation of the Torah mitzvahs that you do, drip by drip, giving the wick the energy it needs so that the fire of the match representing the Shekhinah that's beginning to attach itself to allow the glorious, beautiful, holy energies to come into the world through your effort of every deed that you do. Whether it's an explicit mitzvah or whether it's the physical deeds that you do that is a mitzvah to take care of your body, to take care of your household, whether it's the beautiful mitzvahs that are seasonal because of a certain holiday, but whatever mitzvah, making sure that every day you have the primary, not the drips of oil, but an incredible, extra abundant flow of learning Torah, from praying and meditating, to allow the foundation of your day to have this incredible, sturdy flow, to allow the Shekhinah to rest on you. See this great light descending as you're striking the match. See this light growing as you continue to pour the oil in this container of your candlesticks. Continue to see the light. Feel the warmth of this light. Feel the aura of this light beginning to light up the world. And as you see yourself walking away from the light, and you're going to leave your house to go to your temple services, and you see from the window this light is beaming into the world. It's actually shining the outer courtyard of your home. And trust that just like in the Beit HaMikdash, the light of the menorah shined throughout the whole land. The light reached far and wide, even though your eyes do not see that it's, maybe you can only see it in your courtyard, but in essence, even though you cannot see the illumination that's beaming to the higher worlds, beaming to every corner of this world, you know it in your mind and you feel it in your heart, and you are motivated and inspired to go beyond the level of connecting to Hashem with beauty and charm, but really to take it to a level of no matter what my life is about, no matter if I see the benefits or not, if I don't see the reverberations or not, I know this light of my mitzvah, I know this light of my Torah and tefillah, chesed and tzedaka, and everything I do is infinitely affecting the world. And as you walk out, you feel the aura of this light in your courtyard following you to your destination of the next mitzvah that you're doing. Ah, how beautiful. The feeling of Hashem's light, almost like a cocoon around you, just likened to the clouds of glory. You feel protected. You move forward. You head in the direction you need to go to. And as you see this vision and you're leaving, you're really taking the moment and you're praying to Hashem, let this teaching, let this inspiration, let this imagery stay with me all day long, but minimally let it be a reminder every time I see a light, every time I see a candlelight, every time I see the flame in the kitchen burner, to let me not forget that the Shekhinah wants to rest on me, and that I continuously be like the wise man who puts his eyes on his head to see the next deed that I'm going to do. Is it giving it nourishment or not? Is it giving it the energy and fuel it needs to linger and shine brightly through me and throughout the world? And you know Hashem's listening to your prayer. You feel so calm. Your heart is calmly beating. You're really reassured now. You feel your back, giving you the sensation that God has your back. You feel your legs. You're really ready to march ahead. And of course, you're smiling because you're looking up at your head and you're seeing the light, because you did this class and you did this meditation and you're on your way to reach new heights. Blessings everyone for joining, and thank you. Please God, it's going to be a journey. I'm trying to make up a few classes that got lost, but hopefully very soon this will be documented in my Tanya upcoming book. And you being here joining me is motivating me to forge ahead as well. Blessings. Chodesh Tov.